Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's 2,000 point Arcs of Omen mission between the forces of Hive Fleet Kraken and House Cadmus. In today's mission, we are going to be playing Data Scry Salvage out of the Arcs of Omen Grand Tournament Mission Pack. So that is a 6-objective mission, 1 in both of the deployment zones and 4 diagonally across no man's land. Special mission rule is Data Scry Salvage. So if a unit does an action on our home field objective, we can get up to 3 victory points for holding up to 3 of the no man's land objectives. So probably something that the Tyranids are going to be able to do a little bit more efficiently than the Knights, since they aren't going to want to have anybody hanging back doing a mission and holding the home field objective. Other than that, it's a hold 1, hold 2, hold more for 4 points each, and we get the Arcs of Omen CP for both of our turns, so starting off on 4 CP for each side. Before we go into the armies, just a quick overview of the board. We have the Tyranids home field objective here, kind of buried amongst the swarms. Then we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 objectives in the middle. And then finally, 2 of the Knights are kind of towing the home field objective for them. In terms of terrain, what you see is what you get. So we're going to have all of the ruins act as 5 inches or taller obscuring ruins so that the Tyranids and their infantry can move through, and then the Knights are going to have to move around. We also have a pair of craters in the home field, or in the backfield of the home objective marker. And then to each side, we have a ring of trees that are going to act as a forest for the sides. So with the mission and terrain taken care of, let's take a look at the armies. For the Imperial Knights Arcs of Omen detachment, we've got 5 Lords of War. Our warlord today is going to be the Knight Warden, who has his Avenger Gatling cannon with the flamer built in. He's got the heavy stubber in his chest, a chainsword, and then the missile pod on top. I can't remember the name of the different missile pods off the top, but this is the 40-point one, so the slightly more expensive one, just to fill in some more points. Then to his right, we have a single Armiger Helverin. Then we have a Castellan with double bell cannon on top, and then the Volcano Lance and the Plasma gun. Next up for our second big knight, we have a Knight Errant with the Melty Gun and Chainsword. Then finally, we have a pair of Warglaives with Melty Guns on top, kind of flanking out. For our oaths today, we are taking Defend the Realm and Lay Low the Tyrant. So we need to make sure that we're killing monsters, vehicles, or characters, and that we are also holding more objectives than my opponent. For the secondaries that I've taken for the Imperial Knights, we have Aboard the Witch, since we want to be killing all of the Psychers anyway to try to take care of those nasty mortal wounds. We have Renew the Oaths, which is going to get me victory points based on my level of honor at the end of the game for my 2 oaths. And then Honor the House, or Honor of the House, which is going to be one of my knights has to perform an action within 6 inches of the center, so near this big ruin in the middle, for victory points depending on what type of knight and depending on whether it is a character doing the action. So that should be just about everybody. Oh. So with the Warlord, I did take 2 CP off for a Warlord trait and relic. He's going to have Ion Bulwark and Sanctuary, so a 4-up invuln around the clock, both in shooting and melee for him. So now that is the relic and warlord trait for the knights. So let's take a look at the bugs. For today's Arcs of Omen detachment, went pretty simple for the Tyranids. My compulsory slot was troops. So we are trying to take a good balance between some monster mash and some swarms here. For the warlord, I have a Turbogon over here with one of the two 20-man Termagant units with their flesh borers. She is going to have the adaptive biology, so the 5-up invuln for her warlord trait, and then her relic is chameleonic mutation, so -1 to hit. Just trying to make sure that she is even more survivable against the big guns of the knights. So we have her. She has Catalyst as her psychic power right over here with a 20-man Termagant squad, 20-man Hormagant squad right next to her. We have a Neurothrope with Onslaught and Psychic Scream for their psychic power. 10-man squad of Termagants with their Devourers that are going to probably be hanging back on the objective. Then we've got the big gun beasts, the Tyrannifex with the Rupture Cannon and an Exocrine, surrounded by the -1 to hit of a trio of Venomthropes. I spent some points to give the Exocrine a 4-up invuln through one of the adaptive biologies. Then going to be one of the big anti-knight mortal wound bombs. We have a 5-man unit of Zonethropes over here. And then flanking them, another 20-man squad of Gaunts with their flesh borers. In Deep Strike, we have a Trigon Prime with Adrenal Glands and the Prehensile Pincer Tails, and a 3-man squad of Ripper Swarms, just to pop up onto a No Man's Land objective a little bit later in the game. For our secondaries for the Tyranids, we have Bring It Down, because obviously you take that when you're going against Knights. We have Engage on all fronts, and we have Warp Ritual. So both sides have a secondary that wants them to be getting close to the center of the board, the Knights to perform an action to get points, and the Tyranids to perform a psychic action to get points as well. So while there's not going to be any secondary, or there's not going to be any objective markers in the center, it is going to end up being a fight for the middle. With the mission terrain and the armies laid out, it's time for the roll-off for first turn. Red die is going to be the Tyranids, green die is going to be House Cadmus Knights. So we are going to get started with the Tyranids at the start of Battle Round 1. Turn 1 for the Tyranids has started off with a bang. We have moved on up the field quite aggressively, trying to take as much of the field as we possibly can, and just make sure that we can apply pressure to the Knights as quickly as we can, with the goal being if we can take down 1 or 2 of the Armigers really quickly, we can severely limit how well they can do in board control for the rest of the game, and slowly collect points for just being in places around the board. So we have gone with Surging Vitality for the Synaptic Imperative. That is the Turbogons, which allows me to have 2 extra inches on all of my moves. Combine that with Opportunistic Advance spent on the Termagants and Bounding Advance on the Hormagants. And this flank we have moved up with just about everything that we can for a couple of easy chargers or a lot of early board control presence for the swarms. In the back, we haven't moved because we still have line of sight to just about everybody that we want to. Over here, we also moved on up with this squad of Termagants and the squad of Zone Throats, who did get the 3d6, dropped the lowest psychic benefit from the Neurothrope. In terms of other command phase abilities, the Turbigon gave the brood of Termagants that are right in front of her the benefit from her. And with that, we are ready to move on to the psychic phase of the Nids. So we are going to get started with Warp Ritual, thanks to the Neurothrope. So we're going to need 4 on 2d6 plus 1, and with a double 1. That is exactly why I wanted to do this one first. That is going to be a CP reroll, bring the Nids all the way down to 1 already. And with a 3 plus the 1 for being a Neurothrope, that is just going to get it. So that is going to be the Neurothrope done performing his psychic action. Next up, we'll have the Turbigon attempt to put Catalyst and fail Catalyst there. So unfortunately, nothing there. So I'll just turn these cards face down so I know that they're not active. And then finally, we are going to go with a Smite from the Zone Throats. Then measuring, I can get it to affect the Warden right here. So 3d6 plus 5. So that is going to be a Super Smite. So d6 plus 3 mortal wounds, for a total of 7 mortal wounds going on to the Warden. And check the stratagems. It is Questor Mechanicus that can have the 5-up Feel No Pain for mortal wounds, and because Cadmus is an Imperial house, I do not get access to that stratagem, unfortunately. That is going to be 7 wounds taken off of the Warlord as we go on to the shooting phase. Starting off in the shooting phase, we are going to say that the squad of Termagants back here with their Devourers are doing the action. So at the end of the turn, that should give me 2 additional points on primary, since I'm holding 2 of the No Man Land objectives. And in shooting, we're going to start off with big guns. The Tyrannifex is going to fire his Rupture Cannon way across the field, and was able to just barely get in range of this Armiger over on this flank. 1 CP spent for the Knights on Rotate Ion Shields, so that he will have a 4-up invuln against this. So we have 3 shots from the Rupture Cannon hitting on 3s. Alright, and then it's going to take the Nids down to 0, but I think we definitely do want to try to throttle as much damage as we can here. So that'll be 2 hits. Wounding on 2s. 2 wounds against the 4-up invuln save now of the Ion Shield. Make 1 fail 1. And you know what? I think the Knights will also try to keep this one, so we'll do a 4-up reroll. Not going to make it, so I'll bring the Knights down another CP to 3. And d6 plus 4 damage for 10 damage onto the Warglaive. Next up for shooting is going to be the Exocrine. He is able to get down and get line of sight on the Warden or the Helverin. So we are going to go and try to take out one of the big knights and the warlord. So we are going to fire his bioplasma cannon into the Warden. So D3, so 7 shots in total going into the warlord of the knights on 3s. Ooh, yikes. So lots and lots and lots of misses there. 4 is to wound. So only 1 wound at his 4-up invuln save, thanks to Iron Bulwark. Will make it. So while the Tyrannifex does a lot and almost takes a full Warglaive off. The Exocrine does nothing. Moving on to this flank with the Termagants right in front of the Tervigon. We're actually going to split fire a little bit. We're going to take 7 of the Termagants that can see and have range of, or line of sight to the Warglaive to try to take those last 2 wounds off of him. And the other 13 are just going to go into this one right up here. Just trying to soften it up a little bit for the Hormagants to charge on in. So this is a squad that got +1 to hit because of the Tervigon. So 7 shots into the heavily wounded one on 3s. And then on 5s to wound. So I've got 1 wound at -1 AP. Not going to make it there, so that's going to take him down to a single wound remaining. And then the other 13 shots going into the unwounded Warglaive. So 13 shots into the other Warglaive on 3s. Ooh, doing very, very well on hits there. Only missed 3 of them. So 10 of them wounding on 5s. Oops, as I knock over my models and move the terrain. 1, 2, 3, 4. At AP -1, so a 4 armor save. Will chip off 2 wounds from the uninjured Warglaive. Finally, on this flank, the Tervigon is going to fire her Stinger salvos into the 1 wound remaining Warglaive. She did advance to keep up with her brood. This is going to be on 4s, thanks to being assault weapons. Not that it really matters, or actually didn't roll any 3s. And then 5s to wound. That'll be 1, 2, 3 wounds at -1 AP. And that'll be 3 wounds going through, so that will be the Warglaive taken out and 1 of the Knights off the field. Does explode, but I don't think he's in range of anything. The final shots from the Tyranids in our first turn are going to come from the squad of Gaunts into the Warlord. 18 of them are in range. These back 2 are just out of the 18 inches. So 18 shots into a 17 wound Knight. So in theory, if they did perfectly, they'll take him out, but we'll probably just try to chip his paint off a little bit more. 4 wounds got through from all of the Termagants. So 4 4-up saves for the Warlord. So we are going to take another 2, bringing him down to 15 and taking us to the charge phase. Only 1 charge went in, but luckily enough it is the Hormagants going into this Warglaive right over here. So trying to surround him as best as we can, and then make sure that the errant in the turn 1 for the Knights can't really do too much. So we are going to try to swarm this 1 Warglaive and take him off the field with the Hormagants. So, unfortunately, the Hormagants were not able to do anything productive against the Warglaive, who in turn killed 5 of them. They are not in synaptic range anymore, so anything but a 1 will cause 1 more to flee, and then 14 of them to have to take a morale test. If they want to let go of the one that I'm trying to take. Just take a different one. After morale, another 2 of the Hormagants fell back, or fell out of combat. So that is going to do it for the turn. We are looking for a total of 4 points for the Tyranids, 2 for bring it down from killing the 1 Warglaive, then 2 after holding 2 of the No Man's Land objective for Data Scry Salvage. We've also got a tally of 1 on Warp Ritual, so we've started that. But other than that, we are taking positions across the field. We don't quite have engage, since the Gaunts basically in these three groups. We're not quite far enough into the no man's land to get that. So not great there, but we did take one knight off the field, damage the Warden Warlord, so we are going to go into Knights Turn One. Start of turn one for the Imperial Knights, and we are moving up the table with as much as we can. So 2 CP spent for a Squire's Duty for the Warglaive to be able to fall back, shoot, and charge. He also got the Bondsman ability from the Errant. He's going to stay back and try to take care of these Hormagaunts. While over here, the Armiger and the Warden are moving through the gap of these two ruins. Armiger is going to try to start taking out some of the Termagants, while the Warden is going to do the action for the Knight Secondary, since he is now within 6 inches of the center. So while he is not going to be able to shoot, we do have the Castellan lined up for plenty of shots into at least the zone throats, so that one of the mortal wound bombs will no longer be on the table. So, while we unfortunately are not going to be able to do the action for the primary to data scry salvage, we are going to try to take off as many of the bugs as we can. The shooting phase is going to start with the Helverin, firing everything that's got the autocannons and its heavy stubber into the Termagants right in front of it. So 43 shots into the Termagants. That is going to be 3, 6, 8, 9 shots. Hitting on 3s. Then we'll use our reroll here for our Oath to get almost a full house. And then 2s to kill. That will kill 7 of the Gaunts. Then finally we have the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, which will be 4 more shots. Alright, I'm going to leave those there so I remember how many are dead. So 4 shots from the Heavy Stubber. 3s to kill will kill 2 more of the Gaunts for a total of 9. Next up, we're going to go to the Knight Castellan. He is going to do some split firing here. He is going to fire his melta-guns into the Hormagaunts. He's also going to fire his Siegebreaker cannons into the Termagants right in front of the Zone Thropes. And then everything else, including a Siegebreaker missile or Shieldbreaker missile, will go into the Zone Thropes. So we're going to start off with the melta-guns into the Termagants. 2 hits and 2s to kill will kill a single Gaunt off of this. Then the cannons will be a total of 43 shots. And they still have 11, so that's actually going to be max shots. So that is going to be 12 shots there. So that's 9, 11, 12. As I move the terrain. 3s to hit. And then 2s to kill. That'll take 2, 4, 6, 8 more of the Gaunts off the board. Next up, we're going to continue into the Zone Thrope. So we're going to start off with the Shieldbreaker missile on a 3. That'll do it. And then on a 4, that should go right through the Zone Thropes with no save there. So let's see, so 5-up save. Yep. That'll go right to damage since they cannot take an invuln save. That'll be 2 damage. Yeah, we'll take that. So 2 damage going right through to one of the zone throats. We'll do the Volcano Lance for 2 shots. 2 hits. 2 wounds. And then their 4-up invuln save. Make both of them, unfortunately. Then the Plasma Decimator is going to be not overcharging, so 2d6. I'm going to use the CP to reroll number of shots there. We really want to make sure that as many of these mortal wound bombs get taken care of. That is going to be 9 shots. 5 and 9. On 3s, I'll use my reroll there for the Oath. And then T5, strength 8, so 3s to wound. 5 wounds at the 4-up invuln. Make 3, fail 2. That's going to be 2 damage a time. So that will kill 1.5 of the zone throats. Just quickly did the Warglaive shooting off camera. He was able to kill 2 of these Termagants off of this big squad near Big Mama. Then finally for shooting, we're going to go into the Errant. He's going to send his Multi-Melta into the Hormagaunts right in front of him. And then his Thermal Cannon into the squad of Termagants right in front of him for max blast. So we'll start with those 6 shots into the Termagants. And then choose to kill. That'll kill a total of 2 more Termagants off. Then 1 shot. 1 kill into the Hormagaunts. So with that, we are done with the shooting phase, and we can go into chargers. A couple of charges went ahead off camera. The Helverin charged into these 3 Termagants, hoping to crush them pretty easily beneath his feet. Then the Errant, even with a double 1, got in with the Hormagaunts. But the big charge is going to be this Warglaive trying to go into the Neurothrope. He's going to need a 9, so hoping to get it. So on a 9, that'll be a 6 and a 2, so an 8. That unfortunately will not do it. Spending a CP, going down to 1 for the Knights. On a 9, he gets it just barely. So we are going to go in to the fight, starting off with that Warglaive. We're going to start with the Warglaive. We're going to choose to do the strike attacks with his Chain Cleaver. And I am going to spend my last command point on Exploding 6s to hit. So hoping for a 6 here or there. So on 3s. Alright, so we will reroll one of these for my Oath. Alright, so 2 misses, but that 6 will explode. Choose to wound. Alright, so 3 wounds. 2 of these go through. We've got the Neurothrope dead, but it's got a 3-up invuln. And 1 CP to spend for the Nids will not be needed, so that is going to be a full round of saves from the Neurothrope, unfortunately. Doing the Armiger's attacks into the Termagants off camera, he was able to crush the remaining 3 beneath his feet, getting that objective securely in his possession. Then we are going to go with the Errant, doing a sweep attack into the remaining Hormagaunts on 3s, rerolling 1 for being honored, and then choose to kill. Will kill 3, 5, 10 more Hormagaunts, which should be the squad wiped. And with the Errant wiping out that squad of Hormagaunts, we have avoided possibly losing an honor point. So at the end of the battle round, we have gone up to 2, because I was able to roll 4 up on my Renew the Oath. So that is completed with the Warlord Warden. We've also gotten 2 points on Honor the House since I started on 1 and I'm ending the turn on 2. So at the end of Battle Round 1, it is 7-4 in favor of the Imperial Knights. However, we are starting to take some damage into our big damage dealers, and I don't think I'm going to have enough assets to keep just using the Warden just as an action monkey to score me those 5 points for the next 2 turns. So we will have to see how it turns out in Battle Round 2 as we go to the Tyranids. Turn 2 with the Tyranids, and we've gone for warp shielding for our synaptic imperative. So even in the movement phase, that's already paid off, because at the end of reinforcements, a Trigon Prime popped up over here, maneuvering himself so that he's within 3 inches of this objective if he doesn't make his charge, and within range of a 9-inch charge of the Helverin. However, veterans of Griffon 4, 1 CP for a free shooting phase in the reinforcement, got 8 wounds off of him. Yes, 8 wounds off of, or no, 9 wounds off of him in the movement phase, bringing him down to 5 already, spending a CP to try to re-roll. I did save 1, so brought him up from 2 wounds left to 5 wounds left, but we are definitely taking a chunk out of him already. In terms of other movement, I advanced up the Zoanthropes over here to continue trying to take out the Warden with Psychic. The Termagants back here are again going to do the objective, or Data Scry Salvage action to get some more primary points. My Warlord Neurothrope is advanced towards the middle of the table just to try to continue getting some points and being a general nuisance, while the Turbigon received his 3d6 dropped the lowest, gave +1 to hit to the squad of Gaunts, and then spawned her free 10-man squad of Gaunts over here on this side of the field. So while we were definitely able to take some of the Nids off the board, we are still dealing with a lot of swarms and a couple of monsters in some less than ideal places for the Knights. But of course that's the point. I also did drop down the Ripper Swarms just to get some free points on engage and maybe tie up some shooting that should go somewhere else in turn 2 for the Knights. So hopefully that will be able to get done. And with that, we're going to go on to the Psychic phase for the Nids. Again, we're going to start with Warp Ritual here with the Neurothrope. So because of his +1, needing anything but Snake Eyes, gets it with a 6. So that'll bring my tally up to 2 for Warp Ritual. Then we are going to go with a 3d6. Yep, we're going to do a 3d6 smite from the Turbigon into the Warglaive. With a 7, that'll do it. So 1 extra wound off in Psychic. No need for Catalyst from her. And now we move on over to the Zoanthropes. They're going to try to smite off some more wounds from the Warden. Just with 2d6 though. And an 11 plus 4, 15. That'll be another super smite of d6 plus 3. So 5 mortal wounds taken off of the Warden, chipping him down all the way to 10 in the Psychic phase. So that is the Might of the Hive Mind in the Psychic phase. Next up, we will let the Bio Bullets fly in shooting. We're going to start off with the Stinger salvos of the Turbigon into the Warglaive. So 8 shots on 3s. And then 5s to wound. Just trying to chip a couple more wounds off here. And we will not get anything there, unfortunately. Next up, we're going to go with the Turbigon with his heavy weapon, the Rupture Cannon. And he's actually going to fire past the Warglaive right here into the Errant. So 3 shots from the Rupture Cannons on 3s. I do have a CP reroll here, but I'm going to actually save it. Strength 14 into toughness 8, so 3s to wound. 2 wounds onto the Errant with his 5 of invuln save. Make 1, fail 1. No CP to reroll for the Knights, unfortunately. So d6 plus 4 damage. For a total of 8 damage going on to the Errant. From the Termagants over on this side of the field, we fired everything that they had into the Warglaive just to try to soften him up for the Turbigon a little bit more. And we got him down to 6 wounds, a couple off there. Then our final shots are going to come from the Exocrine. It's going to go right past the Warglaive and into the Warden. See if we can't get him off the field, or at the very least taken down to being ineffective at shooting. So d3 plus 6. That's going to be a max 9 shots. So we're going to have 9 shots hitting on 3s. And then wounding on 4s. So 4 at a 4 of invuln save. No CP to reroll for the Knights. Ooh, and that is... Yep, just double checking CP. It is currently at 0, so that is going to be 12 damage going through to the Warden. That is going to be the Warlord off the field. And he explodes. Luckily, or unluckily, it was only a 3-inch explosion for the Warden, so it actually did not hit anything. And then the final shooting was from the Trigon Prime. He shot out at the Armiger Helverin and took 1 wound off in shooting. So that is going to do it for a very effective shooting phase from the Tyranids, with taking the Warden off and taking 8 wounds off the Errant. And we are going to go into the charge phase. In the charge phase, the Turbigon was able to get into the Warglaive no problem. Trigon Prime spent our last CP to try to reroll his charge into the Helverin, to no avail. It's just going to be the Turbigon into the Warglaive. I'm going to do the sweep attacks, so doubling my number of attacks. So hitting on 3s. Alright, well, I guess that is going to even out. So it is going to be strength 7, toughness 7, so 4 to wound. 1 wound at minus 3 AP is going to take him to a 6-up. Doesn't make it. So 2 damage going through to the Warglaive, but then he will be able to fight back and chop the Turbigon. So we're going to be hitting on 4s with 4 attacks with the chop. 3 hits, and then this is going to be 3s to wound. That's going to be 2 wounds at the 4-up invuln save thanks to warp shielding. Make both of those. So it is going to be a drag out fight in the middle on that no man's land objective. So at the end of the turn 2 for Tyranids, we're going to get 3 primary points on Data Scry Salvage, since I am on 3 of the 4 no man's land objectives. 3 points for engage on all fronts. So that will take us up to a total of 22-7 at the start of turn 2 for the Imperial Knights. So let's see how well we can do fighting back and getting back into this thing. Turn 2 with the Imperial Knights. We're going to go up to 15 for holding 2 objectives here for the primary. 1 CP out of the 2 that we gained thanks to being honored on the fallback shoot and charge for the Warglaive yet again. So he is weighing his options. There's a couple of possible charges. He might charge back into the Turvagon, or he might try to charge in and start messing up the backfield for the Tyranids over here, depending on how the rest of shooting goes. We did move forward with the Errant yet again. The Castellan did scooch back just a little bit to try to deal with these Raveners in the backfield. That way they don't really deal too much of an issue and are just kind of a free point for engage. My Helverin also did not move, looking to hopefully take care of the Trigon Prime on this backfield objective as well. And just the name of the game is try to use the 4 models that we have left to take off as much of the Tyranid threat as possible. First up in shooting is going to be the Helverin into the Trigon Prime. So 43 shots into him. So it's 3, 6, 8, 9 shots yet again. I think I've gotten 9 shots every time I fired this guy. This game, at least. So 9 shots on, drop die, don't count. On 3s, and we'll use our reroll here for being honored. Then strength 7, toughness 7 on 4s. And then his 4th invulnerable save will make 3, fail 3, so statistically average. So that's going to be 3, 6, 9 damage. Even if I was able to reroll 1, that would still be enough. So that will take the Trigon Prime off the board. So that's 1 big threat removed off of the board from the Tyranids. Next up, we're going to go with the Castellan, and again, I'm going to split fire a little bit. His multi-meltas and the battle cannons are going to go into the Rippers to try to deal with them. Then the 2 arm weapons and the shield breaker missile are actually going to go right ahead and try to shoot down the Neurothrope there in the middle. The reason I'm doing that is just to try to get a single one, get a count off for Aboard the Witch, and that's going to slow down Psychic Ritual for the Tyranids, so trying to force them to use something like the Zonethropes to do that instead of continuing to blast me with their Mind Bullets. The small arms fire from the Castellan, done off camera, killed 2 out of the 3 bases, so hopefully that's going to be a morale issue for him. Now we are going to get going into the heavy weapons, into the Neurothrope in the middle. I'm going to start off with my 2nd and last shield breaker missile. So on a 3, and then strength 10, toughness 5, 2s. That'll do it. Then -4 and no invulnerable save will mean that I go right on through to damage. If this is a 6, I get them and I waste the 2 arm guns, but c'est la vie. Alright, so 2 damage taken off of him. I'm actually going to reroll that, just because that is going to be my best chance to do some significant damage and not deal with this invulnerable save. And of course it backfires on me for 1 damage. So next up we will go with the Plasma Decimator. Not going to overcharge, so 2d6 shots will be 8 shots. Again on 3s. Miss 1. Then 3s to wound. And then against his 3-up invulnerable save, he makes all of them. Yikes. Then the Volcano Lance will be d3 shots. 3 shots from the Volcano Lance on 3s, using my honored reroll. 2s to wound. Alright. Then if any of these are below a 3, it will be a dead Neurothrope. And they are not. So, Castellan fired and got 1 wound off a Neurothrope and killed 2 Ripper bases. Not good enough, unfortunately. Finally, in the shooting phase, we're going to deal with the Errant. Everything that he's got is going to go into this squad of Termagants. Just try to clear it off and make it so that I can charge no problem into the Turbigon. So there'll be Max Blast on the Thermal Cannon. And then 2s to kill. That'll kill 2 of her babies. Then the Melt-A-Gun will kill a 3rd. So that'll be 3 of her gaunts taken off the board. And then that is going to go bring us to the charge phase. We're going to start off the charge phase with the Warglaive going into the Devourer wielding Termagants, needing an 8-inch charge, making it with a 9. So he is going to go right ahead and charge in there. The Errant is going to go in and charge. I'm going to declare just the Turbigon, so I might need a couple of inches, but considering I'm right next to her, 10 inches, so that I can kind of swoop around like so, will get me into melee with her. Only 1 CP right now for the Tyranids, so no chance of interrupts, so I'm going to start off with the Errant, doing a sweep attack into the Turbigon. This is going to be 12 attacks on 3s. I'll reroll 1 of them for being honored. Oof, miss the majority of them, so that's only going to be 5 going through. And then 4s to wound. Yeah, that's only going to be 2 of them at her 4-up invuln. And she'll make 2 of them, so she has completely survived the attacks of the Errant. Next up, I'm going to do the Warglaive. He's only on 4 wounds left, and we will try to sweep for his attacks. So 8 attacks on 4s. I'll reroll 1 of them for being honored. And then 2s against their 5-up invuln will kill 4 of them. And then next up, it will be the Nid's turn to strike back. In the close combat over here, somehow the Termagants were able to take a single wound off of the Warglaive, and the unscathed Turbigon Mama is going to do her strike attacks into the Errant. So, on 3s, we'll try to get him a little bit lower than that, I guess. So we'll go with a reroll to hit. That'll go that. And strength 10, toughness 8, 3s to wound. 2 wounds, minus 4 AP. Will go right on through, since he has no invuln in close combat. So there's going to be 43 damage for 1, 2, 3, 5 damage taken. Bring him down to 11. At the end of turn 2, we have lost an honor point for the Imperial Knights, because the only unit that we killed was the Trigon Prime. However, the Ripper Swarms did run away in the back, so that saves the Castellan a little bit of headache at the very least. However, we are not looking so good on the ground. We've got only 4 models left. One of them's danger close to our big gun beasts, and the others are all kind of spread out through the table. So it is looking like it might be one good turn for the Nids away from a defeat for the Imperial Knights. And it is their turn next, so we are going to go to Tyranids Turn 3. Turn 3 with Hive, Fleet, Kraken, Tyranids, and we have gone up to 34 victory points right now. And my idea is just to try to throttle damage from the Knights as much as I can. So I have gone into Psychic Augmentation for our Synaptic Imperative. So an additional +1 on all Psychic tests. So we are going to hopefully be able to smite this Helverin off the board. We have fallen back with the Termagants on the home field objective, so that the Exocrine can take care of the last 3 wounds remaining. Tyrannifex is aiming down sights at the Errant, while the Turbigon and her reinvigorated up 20 brood are gonna press onto the home field objective for the Knights. And finally, this 10-man squad is just going to hang out in no man's land, hiding behind this ruin to get at least 1 no man's land objective for the rest of the game for the Tyranids. In terms of command phase abilities, Turbigon gave +1 to hit to her brood right here. Neurothrop gave himself 3d6 for Psychic, and then that is everything for the movement and command phase. So next up, we're going to go on to Psychic. I'm going to start off with Smite from the Zone Throats going into the Helverin. This is going to be 2d6 plus a total of 5. That is going to be 6 plus 5, 11. That is going to be a Super Smite +3, so d6 plus 3, 9 mortal wounds will take him down to 2. Then I'm going to move on to the Neurothrope. He's actually just going to go with Smite as well. On 3d6, drop the lowest. That is going to be 7, 8, 9. So just a regular Smite, unfortunately. So looking for a 3-up. And that will be the Helverin exploding, or taken off the field, and not exploding, unfortunately. So that will be another model off the board, bringing us down to only 3 Knights left. And to wrap up the Psychic phase, the Turbigon was able to get Catalyst off on to the 20-man or 20-bug squad of Termagants right in front of her. So they are going to be even harder to remove. So we are going to move on to Shooting phase. We're going to start off with the Exocrine. He's going to fire everything into the Warglaive, try to take him off the field. So d3 plus 6 shots for a total of 7 shots. 5, 7, hitting on 3s. Wounding on 3s. And then a 5-up invuln save from the Warglaive. Will make one fail 2. Even if I had enough to reroll, or even if I rerolled, that would be enough to take him out. And I don't think there's any real reason to do a Vengeful Salute here. So does he explode? He does, so save me a CP there. So that is going to be the Warglaive taken off the field. So 4 Knights down, 2 to go. We are going to see if we can cut the head off the Knights and essentially wrap up this game right now with the Rupture Cannon going into the Knight Errant. So 3 shots, hitting on 3s. All of them hit. Strength 14, so wounding on 3s. We will spend a CP to reroll one of those for the NIDS. That is going to be 2. Going up against his 5-up invuln save. Make 1 fail 1, and we'll try to reroll here for the Errant. Alright, so that does get both of the Rupture Cannons saved off of the Errant, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Alrighty, and caught myself in a mistake. I was going to my little dial to spin down and spend the 1 CP for that reroll, and the Knights don't have any CP to reroll. So unfortunately, it is going to be 1 from the Rupture Cannon going through. So D6 plus 4. Alright, minimum damage, but that still is taking the Errant down to 6 wounds. And we still have a couple of shots left from the rest of the NIDS. Rest of the shots were done off camera, and all that resolved was a single wound taken off of the Errant. Then in the charge phase, what we're going to do is the 20-man Termagant squad is going to charge in to the big knight in the back with a 2. They are going to be able to tag him up into close combat. And in that fight phase, we were able to kill a single Termagant with the Castellan. But other than that, looks like the Tyranids have just about taken the field. So they are going to be on 34 or 37 with engage on all fronts being taken into account. I'm going to go into turn 3 for the Imperial Knights just to see what they could possibly score, but I don't think there is a fighting chance for the Knights of the Imperium, unfortunately. In turn 3 with the Imperial Knights, looks like that is just going to be about it. Taking a look at the Castellan, all of its weapons are blast, other than the multi-meltas. So it's going to be stuck in that combat for the rest of the game. That's just going to leave the 1 Errant left. So maybe he can come in, let's say he does supremely well in combat with the Tervagon. That picks him up a couple points for aboard the Witch, but then that's going to leave him in line of sight and range of the Tyrannifex, Exocrine. They shoot him off the board. That just leaves the Castellan at the back. Primaries maxed out for the Tyranids easily. I take the rest of my Warp Ritual and probably get engaged the rest of the game as well. So unfortunately, it looks like the Xenos threat has taken this battlefield successfully. So even though it was a bit of a poor showing from the Imperial Knights, hope everybody did enjoy the battle report. Always fun to see how, even though the Imperial Knights are big and deadly, they can be pretty easily overwhelmed by swarms and even big monster mash lists. So, hope everybody enjoyed the game. Make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you did. And I'll see all of you folks on the next battlefield of the 31st millennium.